Welcome back to Movie Reel, everyone. I'm Samantha Tomlinson.
And I'm Kevin Tracy, everyone, and happy Independence Day to all of our American audience members.
And to our non-American audience members, happy Saturday or whatever holiday is going on in your country. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah. To everywhere else in the world, enjoy your independence from Britain at your own leisure.
um, so, to celebrate Independence Day, we thought we would talk about what movie, Kevin?
The Patriot. No.
National Treasure.
Goonies again.
Just again, yeah.
Just again. We wanted to talk about it again. We enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, we're talking about Independence Day, a world where Bill Pullman is president and Will Smith is a fighter pilot, and
Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum.
What was his job?
He was like a satellite repairman.
He
was basically like an overpaid. He was basically just like an overqualified like satellite TV repairman. That's pretty much what I gathered from him.
Based on just him in the beginning, and then like it was like a newsroom. I thought he was like a reporter or something, and I thought he was a reporter for like most of the movie until someone said something about him being like a mechanic or whatever, and I'm like, he is. I mean, that does answer why he has this like he figured out the whole signal thing ish, but like,
yeah,
I had no clue on what his job was. I was so confused.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why his dad's like, really, you think that you just your average schmuck couldn't figure out what the entire White House couldn't figure out? You're just a TV repairman, for God's sakes. It's
my God, I really liked the dad, but they made him as Jewish as they
oh my
possibly.
God, yeah.
Which it was just fine, but it was just very like, we get it. Like
his entire character revolved around the fact that he is Jewish.
Yeah, he said like, I'm dressed like a schmuck, or like he just was making these.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, it's like I'm going to see the president. Look at me, I look like a shamil. It's like, oh come on.
Yeah.
It's like, seriously.
Yeah. And I'm like,
I don't even know half these words that you're saying.
I understand the context. I just don't get. Yeah.
Yeah. It is kind of funny how that was his entire character, and everyone else was kind of more or less a bit more developed than that. But I mean, he wasn't like that major of a character. Like, he was a pretty decent like driving force for Jeff Goldblum's character, but outside of that, he didn't really have much of a purpose, I guess.
Most of these, okay. So this was made by the same people who, what was it? So Godzilla, which we covered, and what was the other one?
Stargate SG-1, starring Kurt Russell.
And
not Stargate SG-1, just Stargate. SG-1 was the series. Sorry.
And Godzilla, again, we covered Godzilla a while back, and I totally see the whole complaint on how it's like the same movie. This is definitely a better movie, but it's the same like tropes of like a couple that's their relationship is in bad shape, and like overly like it's just overly jerk like politicians or you know, guys that are on the higher ups. Like, it just had all those same tropes, and I'm like, yep, this is made by the same people. And
Roland Emmerich, you can see his like fingerprints like all over this and Godzilla and even Stargate. Though they all kind of follow a very similar path, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when it gets to a point where it's like it just hits the exact same story beats in the exact same manner, it does get it loses its luster after a while, like very quickly.
Yeah, and I might have said this before, but I don't really care if a story is straightforward or even if it follows a formula, as long as I'm entertained and not kind of rolling my eyes like, oh, I see where this is going. Like, I'm fine. You know, and I wouldn't say I was like rolling my eyes like I know where this is headed, but like it was just very like, first of all, there were like 10,000 storylines going on. There was so much going on in this movie.
There was a lot.
And it wasn't difficult to follow, but it was just, I barely got a sense of most of these characters because we focused, like, Will Smith should have had a bigger role than, sorry, no offense, than Vivica Fox.
Yeah.
Because he's Will Smith. And this is 90s Will Smith. This is like, he's still coming off Fresh Prince, which, fun fact, the kid, so he's in a relationship with Vivica Fox, and she has a son. The son he was on Fresh Prince. He was like one of the Banks kids. He was like they have like a baby, I guess, some point during the show.
Oh yeah, it was like towards like the end of the show's running, I believe.
It was like, I think it was when they got the new Aunt Viv.
Yeah, the new Aunt
Viv. She gave birth and then was a different person the next season.
Yeah, that's how birth goes, right?
Don't you completely change?
You go through a metamorphosis, and then you expel the baby, and then that's your life now.
Yeah, there was just so much going on in this movie, and again, it wasn't difficult to follow. It was just, I feel like, I don't know. It was weird. I feel like I should care more about this character. Why aren't we seeing more of this character and what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish? It's just, no, and they spent too much time, like, on certain people, and yeah, not enough on, like, Will Smith. I can't get over this. Will Smith was top billing, and I feel like he's barely in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, this movie does have a lot of very memorable moments outside of the kind of like throwaway characters. There's a lot of characters in here that are very much like they're here for like a decent portion of time, and then they're either dead or kind of discarded in the next. Like Brent Spiner, from Data from Star Trek, is a perfect example of it. He's a Doctor like Oken or something. He's basically like one of like the scientists who shows up like when they show up in Area 51, and he's like this very energetic, like crazy, kind of like mad scientist vibe, and then pretty much like two scenes later, he's like knocked into a coma because an alien like reads his mind.
So that guy,
like, okay, cool.
I was like, he looks really familiar, and then I looked him up, and I'm like, I wasn't seeing anything that I would have known him from, and then I saw the movie why I know him. He was the bad guy in Master of Disguise. That's why I know him.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. That was Dana Carvey. Dana Carvey, yeah. God, that was a train wreck.
The thing was, I saw that movie, I think, in theaters, and I remember really liking it. And then
I think I did too.
As I got older, I learned that it sucks. And I'm like, I mean, to me, it's like, I agree with most of the things I hear about it, but it's a bad movie. That's not really.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing that in theaters, like, I don't know, it was like first grade. So yeah. I was very little, and then it kind of just flew under the radar ever since then, and then I just kind of like rediscovered it in high school. And was like, oh man, I haven't seen this forever. I remember this being like the funniest movie, and I watched it, and it was like, good God, I was a horrible kid. I had horrible taste as a kid.
That's the thing, is there's certain movies I watched as a kid that I'm like, I'm proud that I watched this as a kid. Like, this is a good movie. I was into good movies. And then there's certain movies where I'm like, I don't question why I watched them, but like,
why did I like it so much?
Like, so Fanboy Flicks, like one of the reviewers that I really like, he's on YouTube. He did a review of Baby Geniuses, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I remember loving that movie. And then in the very beginning, he said, like, I had to watch this movie because I remember my friend watched it, and I was like, what did this movie do to destroy this person? Like, it broke his friend because it was so bad. And I'm like, oh, maybe this movie about kids being geniuses until they turn 2.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. This is kind of a random tangent. I remember going on a random tour in like my local movie theater, and one of the movies that they were playing was Super Baby Geniuses 2, and as like a souvenir, um, we got random uh like cuts like the film reel of like so somewhere in my house, I don't know where, I have just a random like strip of film reel of Super Baby Geniuses 2. I don't know where it is or
It's
what
hung
I
up.
did with it. It's
It's thumbtacked to your wall, to your ceiling, that you look up at it every night before you go to sleep.
yeah, I have a candlelight vigil every year when that movie was released, just somewhere like in my closet.
um,
It's like, oh, cannot wait for Baby Geniuses 3.
oh my god. Super Baby Geniuses 3.
Yeah, super
Yeah.
duper.
Um, so Independence Day, this movie came out in
90s.
1996,
Yeah.
and it has a pretty big cast. It's got, like I said, Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum,
Bill
Bill
Pullman.
Pullman, and Robert
Vivek.
Loggia, who's the general, and then Vivica Fox and
Yeah, a few
uh
other people. We got Adam Baldwin.
yes, yeah, and this I just felt like this movie was filled with so Godzilla. I remember the whole movie. I know like there's a bunch of people in that movie that were on The Simpsons, or this movie. I just feel like there's a bunch of people who I'm aware that for an actor, you're going to do a bunch of different projects and you're going to get recognized from some of those projects. But it just felt like, oh, that person's from that movie. That person's from that movie. It just seemed like it was like reference, 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 which is not what it was trying to do. But something
No.
about this cast just I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was just very weird. The whole cast. I'm like, oh yeah, that person, that guy, the boss, Jeff Goldblum's boss with the voice.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
I know that voice, and then I looked it up. It's Yao from Mulan. That is. I'm like, that's why I know this guy's voice. It like and like call. I told my sister that we were doing this movie, and she's like, which one's Yao? I'm like, he was King of the Rock when they go swimming, and she's like, oh, okay. But
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. I thought I recognized that voice. Like, God, why does this guy sound so familiar?
because
Um,
I'm like, is that his real voice? It sounds like a fake voice.
yeah. Um yeah, one thing I do like about this movie is that it's not like set in like the distant future and like the far off past. It's set during like present day of
Mhm.
whatever year this was made, and it just sticks with that like timeline. It like the entire span of this movie is 3 days. It starts on July 2nd, then July 3rd, and then it ends on July 4th. Coincidentally on Independence Day. Um so yeah, this movie starts off on July 2nd, and this giant, enormous mothership UFO just hangs out around the moon, and a bunch of like local like satellite dishes pick it up. It's like, guys, is this one of yours? Like, no, I thought it was one of yours. So they're like passing all these messages along, like between like NSA and like the Air Force and all these other like organizations. And then later that day, Bill Pullman, President Whitmore, is briefed on the situation of, we have a large extraterrestrial presence near the moon, and now it is. We thought it was a meteor, but it has since slowed down and stopped. So this thing's being controlled, and then later on it splits off into several larger masses that enter the orbit, and it's a bunch of giant circular, like classic looking UFOs
And
that are
they cover New York, uh, DC, and LA, which
and I
are
think and
all
I
the.
yeah, and a couple other like a few others like around the world, but those are like
Oh
the
yeah,
main
yeah,
ones that they focus on.
yeah. I mean, okay, it's all around the world, but in the beginning, it's like acknowledges that they're all over the place, and then for the most of the movie, we're just focusing on America, and then at the end, when they come up with their plan, then it's like, oh yeah, they're all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it would be kind of distracting and kind of be like a random like it would kind of like kill the pace of the movie if we kept cutting to all the other like UFOs around the world where
no, I get
like
that,
no
but
one really
they
knows how they're fighting this thing.
no, I get that, but like it's like they don't really, and I understand that they're focusing on the one that's right here, but like I just thought it was weird. Like, oh yeah, they're all over the world.
Yeah.
they're not just covering up America.
Yeah, and another like super menacing thing about these things is that they have like a radius of a mile long. So like these things are like perfectly like symmetrical, but like they'd cover a huge swath of land, and they're just like hovering over, like they're not doing anything, and everyone's just like, what the hell's going on? Um, but before the like smaller ships, the mile long ones just show up. David, played by Jeff
Jeff
Goldblum.
Goldblum.
I had a Jeff Goldblum there for a moment, just he works for like Viacom or something, some like satellite TV station, and all of like their satellites are like being taken down, and they're having like a huge bunch of complaints that like, hey, I can't get any receptions. Like, well, we can't get reception either. Like, we checked this morning, and our satellites are registering, but they're not where they're supposed to be. And shortly after that, they just stop broadcasting, and it's like, oh, that's weird. And then he starts to notice some like pattern through some kind of like broadcast wavelength that only he picked up because it's so obscure or something. It's really weird how they describe it because it really doesn't make any sense. It's just, oh, I found it by accident because of my job.
Yeah.
Is basically how they market that.
Yeah.
Like
And
I
yeah,
don't know how else to describe that.
it just yeah, I get what you mean. It was the thing was being that I was not very clear on what his job was. It also like it
It
all
flew
seemed
over your head.
random. Yeah,
Yeah.
like but yeah, basically figures out that yeah, they're jamming their our own satellites against us, and so and then he says like it's like it's like chess because in the beginning when we first meet him, he's playing chess with his dad in the park, and he basically is like, we got 6 hours until, and then they're like, what happens when the signals stop or whatever? And he's like, checkmate. And they're all like, and his boss like, oh my god. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, I understand in chess, checkmate is the end. That's
That's
like,
game
that's
over.
game over. But I still didn't, I'm like, am I supposed to know what they're planning? I
I mean,
understand chess. I understand checkmate is game over. But like, I thought that when they said that, I'm like, oh, is this going to be? Is this whole movie? My first thought was they have 6 hours to like fight the aliens and get rid of them, or else they're going to like destroy the world. I didn't understand why. I understood that they were freaking out, but I didn't have enough information to understand like how did they even understand what they were doing? Did
I think it was pretty much just like it was just a really like foreboding and menacing line of just we only have 6 hours before checkmate, and it was just a really cool like trailer action line
yeah, but
that
it wasn't.
also,
Yeah.
I mean, it was the beginning of the end for them because later on we find out that once like their timer runs out, all the like giant mile long UFOs just shoot this huge like death ray like directly underneath their ship and just destroy everything directly underneath them. And later on, we learned that if they keep going on the rate that they're going in the next like X amount of hours, I think he said like 72 hours or like 64 hours or something like that, the entire human race will be extinct.
See,
It's like that is a very convoluted way to exterminate an entire planet. I mean, I guess
it
it's cost effective because it's a very it's very elaborate way to just destroy the entire population.
it is elaborate, but I also realize that when you really think about it, as far as alien movies go, this is a really interesting alien movie because you don't really see that much of the aliens.
Yeah,
Like,
you only see
yeah,
them for like a few like scattered scenes like near the end of the movie,
like
and that's
middle
pretty
to
much it.
end, yeah. And
Yeah,
but I thought like the plan of they're gonna like destroy, like they have. I kind of actually liked their plan because I realized it wasn't them coming down and enslaving everybody. It wasn't like as much physical contact with them. It was like because also we find out that they've done this before, and
yeah.
so it's like for them on their end, it's like a cost effective way to like destroy a planet. So I mean, it sounds horrifying. But at the same time, I'm like, this is actually kind of it is
But
elaborate. It's
it is a
definitely
very
elaborate, but
ingenious plan. Yeah.
yeah, but it is definitely elaborate. But
Yeah.
it's also, it is crazy because so what building was it in LA? It was the Empire State Building blows up, and then all these
The White
people, and the
House.
White House, and then some building in LA. I don't.
Some random skyscraper. If it had some importance, it was lost to me because
Yeah,
this was L.A. in '96, so I don't really know know my history that well. To It's like, for all I know, it could have been a Capitol Records building.
I think
That
maybe it
that's
was it. Maybe it was.
I have no idea.
It was a
Um,
building. It was a
it was
building.
some building in LA. I don't care. Um, but
So
yeah,
yeah, we
so we heard about Bill Pullman's character, and we heard about uh, uh, Jeff Goldblum's character. I'm not doing that on purpose, folks. I'm just really drawing, like, I'm having some major brain farts. And so Will Smith's character is later introduced. He is dating Vivica Fox, who we later find out is a stripper, and she has a son who is the little kid from Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And Will Smith is a fighter pilot for the U.S. military who.
he's visiting his girlfriend. He's supposed to be off for the 4th, and well, when we first meet him, because like the UFOs are coming and they're landing, the son and their dog comes in like trying to get them up, but they're like, no, go back to sleep. And then
Yes,
Will Smith wakes up, he goes outside to get the paper, and he notices everybody's like leaving, like getting out
freaking
of
out.
town.
Yeah,
And then he sees that there is a spaceship like right there.
yeah.
And
And
yeah.
then Vivica Fox like, "Hey, baby, what you doing out here?" And then she's like, and then she sees it, and then the kid's just like, "I'm fighting space aliens." Like, all right, go get him, little man, because he said that earlier when he's like first waking them up, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, he's playing his games. Go do you, little man. And then then he just like runs up and he's just pretending to shoot it with like a squirt gun or like a toy gun.
Yeah, and and he decides he has to go back to base, and Vivica Fox is like, "No, you're supposed to be off for the 4th of July," and it's like there was a UFO there, like, and he's like, "Well, they canceled it." Like, I kind of was, I understand she's freaking out, but also like the 4th of July is obsolete when there is a UFO landing,
Yeah,
and he so yeah, he leaves, and first of all, we meet his friend, who is Harry Connick Jr.,
that's right. I totally forgot about that.
which, no, don't get attached because he's going to die later. Um,
What? No.
but we see he has, Will Smith has a ring. Uh, what is her name? Vivica Fox's name in this?
It is
Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Jasmine. And he had this ring. I don't know. He doesn't really. She loves dolphins, and so it's like two dolphins like are like the
Yeah,
setting for the diamond. And then he's been trying, I guess, what is it? He wants to be an astronaut. He's trying
yeah,
to join like the aerospace
yeah.
something,
He's basically been like trying to like apply for like the NASA like deep space program or something like that. Basically, being an astronaut.
and he keeps getting rejected. And Harry Connick Jr. is like, they're never going to let you be an astronaut if you marry a stripper. And I'm like, what? And then it cuts to Vivica Fox at work, just like
Like,
dancing. And
yeah, and no one's paying attention to her. They're just all like crowded by the bar watching the TV covering like the UFOs.
her
It's like that's actually really funny.
her being a stripper was irrelevant information. And he also just, and like, also he said like, I thought you were going to break it off. And it's like, so is he having, and that never comes up again. And I'm assuming it was because she's a stripper and that he wanted this job. And of course, then it's, I guess, he'd rather have her than the job, I guess maybe is the idea. But like, her
Yeah,
being a stripper is irrelevant.
yeah, it was just kind of like it would just. I feel like Harry Connick Jr. was just kind of like, I'm just trying to look out for you, and yeah, it does kind of make sense that it would just be kind of like, oh, him marrying a stripper is like he's just kind of like driven by impulse Because I mean, like, how does that sound? Of like, oh yes, I want to be an astronaut. Would you like to meet my wife? You can meet her at work. She works at the Titty Twister or whatever the random strip club name is called. It
Is that a
just
strip
seems
club
kind
name?
of.
Is that a strip club name?
Yeah, I'm pulling that from Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, the Titty Twisters.
That's a fun movie.
I'm not judging the
Yeah,
movie. I'm just like,
yeah, no,
what a name.
that's the only name I can think. I've never been to a strip club. I don't know what they're called. Just it just seems kind of, I guess, not really upscale, and I guess kind of trashy for like like, oh, here's my astronaut colleague. His wife's a stripper. His wife's a homemaker. His wife is a home, like, head of a homeowner association. Like all these kind of like, it just seems like kind of like in like a stain on his record of. And I know this sounds kind of mean, but it does kind of make sense why that would be a factor into him not being an astronaut or being accepted into that program.
Yeah, but I mean, for the sake of the movie, he could have just been getting rejected as opposed to because like her. I just meant her being a stripper for the only time her being a stripper actually was relevant to anything was after she's at work. So one of her friends, her coworkers, is gonna go. So I guess at the top, let's say it's the Capitol Records building. There's all like not protests, these people with like welcome signs to the aliens, like yay, like welcome and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
she's like, she has a sign, and she's like, I'm gonna go right after work. And Vivica Fox is like, no, don't. It's not safe. Promise me you won't go. And then she goes, and I mean, then the building blows
Dies.
up and dies. And
Oh, I also, sorry, I
yeah.
also really like that when like all the news coverage, or like covering like all the protesters, one of them is just like, oh God, I hope they bring back Elvis. Like,
Oh
what?
yeah. Well, in Men in Black, we find out he just went home. This is also
This is true.
this is like 2 years before Men in Black. I think
Yeah,
this is
this
before Men in
was
Black.
uh yes.
It's
That is a
it's
good question.
it's maybe it's like a year or two before Men in Black came out, but I think I'm pretty sure that was 97 or 98.
Men in Black came out in '97, so this was
Oh
a year
okay.
before.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just had to like, it was like, yeah, they did come around the same time. Yeah, that does check out.
Um, so yeah, so yeah, Bill Pullman. Back to Bill Pullman. Like I said, he's president. His wife, the first lady, she's in L.A. doing something, and
Some kind of like press conference thing for like his like upcoming election or something, like a re-election, because earlier on in the movie they're like talking about like how like drastically like bad his poll numbers are.
or because they think he's
So
a wimp,
yeah,
which I also
yeah,
think is. I mean, at this point, we don't know anything about what kind of president he was before all of this happens. So, like, I can't judge it. That's just, yeah. I don't know. I want to say that's unfair, but then I'm like, I have no idea. Maybe he is. Like,
yeah. It's like, I don't know what happened.
and they have their young daughter who's like, it's Mae Whitman. It's like young Mae Whitman is playing the daughter. And I will say she's there for a lot of the movie. Like, I realized she's with them when they go to Area 51. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
wow.
she's with them through the long haul, and same with the son, Vivica Fox's
Yeah.
son. He's there for like most of, if not the entire movie.
Yeah.
And especially the dog Boomer. Um,
This
that
movie,
dog Boomer.
there were I I hadn't seen this movie, but I realized there were like 2 or 3 scenes I had seen. I had seen the part where Bill Pullman like sees into the alien's mind and sees what they're planning, and I had seen the part where LA is about to like explode, and she finds like cover, which was pretty brilliant. No one else seemed to do this. There was like a maintenance closet. She busts it open, and it's stone, so they're going to be safe from the fire, and she screams, Boomer! I thought that was,
Yeah.
for some reason, I did not know that was Independence Day. I thought that was I Am Legend. I don't know why, which makes no sense, because I Am Legend, there's nobody. But I don't know.
No, there really isn't.
So I don't know why I assumed that, but I didn't know that was Independence Day. And then I had seen the part at the end where the guy's like, tell my kids I love them, and like, I'm back, and then he dies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'd seen random scenes throughout this movie, but I one of them I didn't even know was this movie.
Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot. Randy Quaid, the actor Randy Quaid, is in this movie, who plays Russell Case, who is like an alcoholic, crop dusting, like ex-Vietnam veteran pilot who throughout this movie he, said that like, oh yeah, I remember I was abducted by aliens once and they did all these weird experiments on me, and everyone like around him just thinks he's like a crazy alcoholic and everyone gives him crap. But we never learn if
it happened,
if that actually happened, and if these were the same aliens. I mean, he thinks that they're the same aliens, but he's an alcoholic and he's very not super reliable throughout this entire movie, except for like the very end.
That's the thing is there are, like we said, there's so many storylines, and to me, it's not like we've seen movies where there's storylines or characters that are just completely useless. But the thing is, all of these characters do, in a sense, contribute. So I'm like, I'm trying to think of, well, which ones. Definitely Jeff Goldblum's storyline is the most important, because he's the one that supplies, he kind of is the springboard. He supplies the first step of information that gets them out of this and saves them.
He provides the plan. Bill Pullman provides the resources, and Will Smith executes that plan. And Randy Quaid is
like
there to
the end, the savior. Like, there's just, there's so many storylines, and it's like
there's a lot of moving parts. It's kind of weird because this isn't really like a complex movie. It's a pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
aliens show up, they try to kill us, we try to stop them, we win because they're technologically superior. So we lose at first a lot, and we find a weakness, exploit it, and kill them. It's pretty much like a War of the Worlds kind of situation. Of they have like a shield that we can't penetrate to destroy any of their vehicles, which is one of the reasons why Harry Connick Jr. dies. Him, Will Smith, and a bunch of Air Force pilots try to attack the mothership in LA, after it pretty much just wipes out all of LA, and they are attacked by a bunch of fighter craft that the UFO launches at them, and they all have shields and they can't penetrate it with their machine guns, their missiles, anything. The only way that Will Smith manages to get out alive is he like releases his like emergency parachute, covers up the windscreen of the UFO fighter, and it causes it to crash into a wall. And he then goes in, knocks out the pilot, saying probably like one of the most memorable quotes in this movie is "Welcome to Earth." Knocks it out, and then he just drags it through the desert in his parachute.
Yeah, and it's there are 100 one-liners in this movie, and I think all of them are Will Smith's. Like,
yeah, there is, however, one line of dialogue. It's the speech that President Whitmore gives like towards the end of the movie, and
I've seen that. That was the other scene.
It's so good,
where he's like, "We're gonna fight for our Independence Day."
Yeah,
Yay!
we're fighting for our right to live, to exist, and should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be an American holiday, but it's the day the world declared in one voice. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. Today we celebrate our Independence Day. And then it just, the biggest loud of applause. It's like, that is a damn good speech.
See, this was like, I realized that speech is the equivalent of, that's the news report that what's her name, Audrey in Godzilla gives, except that speech seemed ridiculous because the music and the whole tone of it was, like inspirational, when it doesn't make sense why that should have been inspirational, because it was pretty bad. Like, the situation's pretty
Yeah.
crappy. This made sense. That speech made a ton of sense. Because, yeah, they're being threatened by aliens. They now have, like, a plan. I will say, once they figured out how. So, actually, jumping ahead, because. Getting ahead of myself. But, Jeff Goldblum, yeah, figures out that these signals are being used against us, and they realize they're gonna blow up these major cities that they're covering. And so within
Yeah.
like 10 minutes, he gets the president and his daughter and all these people get out of the White House, and we see all of these various cities explode. And
Yeah.
and I can and the thing is, in the beginning, so the what is it, the press secretary or chief of staff or whatever, the person that
I
the
think
woman
it's like I think it's Secretary General.
secretary general, what's her name? Constance or
I
something. I had to look it up.
Constance Spano.
She is Jeff Goldblum's ex-wife, who we see in the beginning. He still is wearing his wedding ring, which implies I thought that his wife was dead, and then find out no, she apparently has this job with the
Divorced
president,
him.
and they're divorced. And the last time she he calls her and she won't she answers and then hangs up. He then shows up at the White House saying like, I have all this information. She lets him in, and she goes to get Bill Pullman, and he's like, he's not going to want to see me. And the dad's just like, why? And she's like, because the last time they were together, he punched him in the head. And he's like, what, you punched the president?
It's like he wasn't the president. Then it's like, you punched the president. It's like, yeah, because he thought I was having an affair with the president. It's like, you had an affair with the president. It's like, no, I didn't.
And that's the thing is,
and he wasn't the president.
She wasn't having an affair, or if she wasn't, never came back. But like,
yeah, this is a sentence that like never comes up again.
It just seemed really
random.
Really, it was really random and stupid. And like, I guess because later she even says to the dad like, love wasn't the issue, and it's like, okay, well, what
Okay.
was? And I guess she later says it's because Jeff Goldblum didn't really have any ambition, which you probably knew that before you married him. So why would you marry him?
Yeah, and they do kind of imply that early on because he is like so overly qualified for his job, and yet he's in a satellite TV repair station. Like that's his job.
Yeah.
And he's able to pick up a life-threatening, life-ending signal from an extraterrestrial threat that no one else notices. And it's like, okay, dude, you need to quit your day job, and I'm pretty sure that Pentagon will hire you just off of that.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum also, when we first meet him, so he and his dad are playing chess in the park, and the dad is like drinking from a styrofoam cup. And Jeff Goldblum's like, you know how long that takes to decompose or to break down? And then later when he's riding his bike into his office, and he goes to the trash and he starts taking cans out, putting them in recycling. And it's okay.
He is like so overly like environmentally conscious.
I'm like, that's what I do. When my roommates in college, when I would see that they put like cardboard in the trash, I'd take it out and put it in the recycling. Or yesterday, I was returning something in a store and they couldn't take the bag back. And they're like, oh, you can just throw it out. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I can't do it. And I literally took it home to throw it away. Like, so I thought that was funny because I'm like, I do the same thing. But it came off because he just did the whole like styrofoam cup thing. It came off like very... that's his thing, because in the 90s that's super annoying to be overly environmentally friendly, but now it's like hardwired into all of us,
basically. Yeah, it's like Jeff Goldblum set the record straight early on about what we needed to be doing.
And he basically finally, that's the thing is, him and Bill Pullman, that's a relationship that I honestly felt like could have been not even just developed more, but just like told better. Like maybe they were really good friends, or maybe they were like
they had a falling out,
or they were, even if they were like brothers or something, like some kind of they have a falling out and then reconcile. Like it just was like all of these random storylines coming together, and not saying that it didn't work. It like barely worked. Like it could have worked better.
Yeah, it either could have just been developed more or just not have been in at all, and it still would have been fine. of just him not taking him seriously because of his position, and just simply thought that his like chief secretary was just using like brought him in purely off of like nepotism.
Hmm. And yeah, it's just yeah. I will say I wasn't not engaged. There were definitely scenes that I was like really into it, but a lot of it I found myself pausing a lot to watch this movie. Um, uh, and so yeah, Will Smith at this point, after his fight with, he fought the alien and knocked and ship crashed, and he's dragging it through the desert. So we're seeing Archie before this, uh, uh,
uh,
Randy.
uh, yeah, Randy Quaid and pretty much everyone like around him, they're all just like have like this like roving caravan of like RVs and like minivans, and they come across him as like, "Hey, you need a ride there, soldier?" It's like, "Yeah, there's a base about like 5 miles that way." It's like, "It ain't on the maps." Like, trust me, it's there.
So he knows about Area 51, apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
You
He
know,
apparently like flew over it during the fight.
yeah,
I think
okay.
was the explanation that they give.
Okay. But so Randy Quaid, his character, yeah, he's like we said, he's like an alcoholic and like PTSD, saying he was abducted by aliens. It's never very clear if it actually happened. I think we're supposed to assume that it did, but there isn't any information that supports that. And
Exactly.
his kids kind of just don't really rely on him. The son, his older son, is like definitely the head of the family, and kind of just wants the dad to straighten up and take, like, the beginning when we first meet him, he crop dusted over the wrong field. Which,
Yeah, it's like, you idiot. The Dungeons Farm's on the other side of the town. It's like, you sure about that?
so yeah, they give
It's like,
Will Smith a ride, and I love this scene. So he's in the back of back of a truck with the alien, and they get to Area 51, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, sir, like we can't let you in." And
it's like you
it's
don't
like
have the proper
it's like
clearance. Like,
what? Take come
come
here,
here.
yeah, like that clearance, and they're like, "Oh my god!" You're like, "Yeah, let him go in, let him go in," and I mean, what? So now all these people have been, and like later in the movie, so when Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum and everybody, they make some note about, like, they're talking about like, oh, like there's never been any alien, blah blah blah, whatever's, and who's the who was he? The guy that he's working with that he fires later.
I honestly don't know. I want to say I won't. Some like Secretary of Defense or something
Okay,
like that. Some high up position in his personal cabinet who is like, yeah, that's technically not true. And then he pretty much tells them, like, oh yeah, like Roswell and all that. Yeah, that was 100% real.
so we're at oh yeah, this is because the dad, basically when they're on the Air Force One, they're talking about like doing like a nuclear attack against all these aliens, and Jeff Goldblum's like, no, like that's not gonna solve anything, it's not gonna help, and the dad's like, hey, my son saved your life, and then he talk about Roswell, and then they end up going to Area 51 and seeing, this is when we meet uh Brent Spiner and see like first visuals of the aliens. And
Yeah.
so yeah, when Will Smith shows up with the alien, they so did he think it was dead, or they say how long has it been unconscious?
Yeah, he said he was unconscious for like 3 hours, and then they immediately started to do an autopsy on it. It was like, and I forget what you call an autopsy on, or a dissection on something that's alive. Is that just called a vivisection?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, I think that's what it is. So unless you want to look it up, but yeah, they basically wanted to like dissect this thing while it's still alive, so they can kind of figure out like any like glaring like biological
And it
weaknesses.
turns into
Uh,
Doom for this scene.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
100%. It kills everyone in there, and then it like wraps a tentacle around like Brent Spiner's neck, and then it just kind of like mind controls him and starts speaking through him, saying like "release me" and like this really like creepy, raspy voice.
And then,
It's really,
classic,
yeah.
can there be peace? And they're like, no peace. And then he basically, I don't know, mind fucks with Bill Pullman, Bill Pullman,
Yeah.
and he's like, I saw into his mind, which I would have loved to have seen that. Like, you could have totally,
Oh, same.
if we saw like, it's like I saw into his mind. They're planning on. They basically, it's like Silver Surfer. Like they're gonna come, they're gonna absorb resources, and then just go away and absorb and move on. And so, yeah, and or actually, first of all, I was so confused because when they first open up the alien, he like it was like
It
a
has like a second head.
okay, because I was like, is it like wait, is this like a suit and the alien is inside? I
No, it's like
yeah
it's like an exoskeleton that I guess it can shed or like kind of like open and close like at will, and can pretty much just operate as is, because it basically opens up and it has like the upper half of like a torso where its head should be when it opens up, because it has a head and it has arms, and then it has like the large arms outside, as well as like 5 or 6 like tentacles just on its back.
yeah. The design
And it's
was
like,
very I mean, it was weird
I
because
love the design for the
I'm not
aliens.
against the design. It's just based on it was like I felt like we didn't really get a clear visual on how it. I know how it looks, but like there were only like maybe one or two like shots of like it in its entirety because there were like an entire scene of just you see the head and then you see the tentacle and it's like I want to see what the whole thing looks like intact as one, and there
Yeah.
weren't that many of that. And so then after it messes with the president, they decide. So they're like, "Is this bulletproof? Is this glass bulletproof?" And they're like, "No." And they just start shooting at the
And
alien.
they just open fire and
And
kill it
I'm like,
immediately.
"See, what a risk!" Because I get that yes, it's still skin and flesh, but like you've been having so much trouble. Wouldn't they have all been concerned? What if the bullets don't work and then they like break? They ruin the container that they have this alien in. I think, but
Well, I mean, earlier on, Brent Spiner, he basically says like, well, their bodies aren't that much like different than us. They're pretty frail. Like these two died in the crash, and this one a few hours later from exposures. Like, okay, so they can be killed and fairly
okay.
easily.
When we
So like,
when
yeah.
we first get to Area 51 and we go into like the lab or whatever and we meet Brent Spiner, I actually laughed because he was so cliche, like crazy scientist. Like he has the long hair and the glasses, and
Oh yeah,
I was
like
just like,
the most stereotypical mad
I was just
scientist look you
laughing.
can
I'm
think
like, of
of.
course, sure. So while all this is going on, we we keep cutting back and forth. We cut back and forth. We cut back to Vivica Fox at least for a while. We cut back to her more than Will Smith. She and her
Yeah,
son, like I said, go into like a maintenance room in like a tunnel, survive the explosion, and she basically finds this like truck. It still works, and she starts picking up injured people. And before all this
and
happened, we're told we see the first lady. They're gonna meet. She's gonna meet her husband. They're gonna meet in Dallas, and then obviously the helicopter, gets shot down essentially in all of the chaos. And Vivica Fox finds her, and yeah, she just has this like she's this finds this like group of like survivors that,
uh,
and including the first lady. And
yeah.
and later, I guess she knew that was the first lady, but she's like, I didn't want to say anything, like because I voted for the
I
other
voted
guy.
for the other guy.
I thought
Yeah,
that
it's like,
was a
oh,
good
that's
joke, but it
that was a
it
really
ended
solid
with an
one.
awkward. I kind of would have loved if she laughed more. I don't know. It just ended with her kind of like, huh,
Well,
and then
to
it
be fair,
cuts.
she was bleeding internally and dying at that
Well, we
scene.
don't know that.
So,
We know she's bleeding, and then when they,
but I mean,
yeah,
we know she's in pain. So it's like she survived a plane crash or a helicopter crash. Like she's not doing fine.
then Will Smith he borrows a helicopter. Some guy like was trying to like get him out, and he was like really, what are you gonna do? Like,
It's like if you're gonna stop me, shoot me. It's like damn, I can't shoot you. And then he's all like, all right now, if anyone asks, just say I punched you. And he's just like, what? And then he just flies
so he
away.
flies away, and because Vivica Fox was trying to get to his base, which has been destroyed, and Will
Yeah.
Smith goes to the base, finds her, all the survivors, and brings them back. And apparently, according to the doctors, if they had gotten to the first lady sooner, then they probably would be
The,
able to help her. But she's bleeding internally, and they can't stop it. And I okay, so then she's like hugging her daughter. Then Bill Pullman comes in to talk to her. Bill Pullman leaves, obviously really upset because his wife died. I didn't know for like a couple of seconds that the wife had died. I thought he was just upset because they said like there's nothing we can do for her, but it didn't really give like a how long. And based on how she was acting, she wasn't like, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like she had more time based on her how she it was still moving, and
yeah.
like it seemed like she had more
Uh,
time than she like a couple of minutes really. I feel like you would be like falling asleep kind of like at this point. At the point she was
yeah.
at.
I thought that like he was going to, or like it was going to be like a little bit more time with the wife, but no, it was pretty much it. It was pretty much
And then I think
what you see is what you
it got
get.
confirmed when the daughter said, "Is mommy asleep now?" And he's like, "Yeah, she's asleep now." I'm like, "Oh, she's dead?" Because when we first saw her, and she was like, for a second, her like eyes were closed when we first find her like uh in like all the rubble and stuff. I thought she was dead, and I was like, "No!" And then she just dies later.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they try doing like, so obviously like the fighter pilots didn't work. They try like sending like nuclear weapons against them.
Yeah,
That just
yeah, they launch a nuke on one of the ships that's like hovering over Dallas, and it's like, all right, we're waiting for confirmation on if this will work in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's all staticky, and then it's later revealed that it had zero effect and it did not penetrate the shield, and now they're like, well, we have absolutely nothing that can penetrate this shield, and they're all super depressed about this, and David or Jeff Goldblum is just like pissed drunk,
yeah
and his dad's all like, "It's like, oh, David, come on, let's get you inside. You're gonna catch a cold." It's like, wait, what did you just say? He's like, yeah, I don't want you to catch a cold. It's like, Dad, you're a genius. So he like whips up this like computer virus to disrupt their shield system, and he tests this on the crashed fighter ship that they recovered in the 50s with the original pilots that they just had for all that time.
yeah
And they activate the shield. It's like, you there, I want you to shoot that can right off the ship. And he fires it, hits the shield, and it ricochets. And it's like, all right, now I want you to fire again. And he fires, and he hits it. And there's no shield there. It's just like, oh, this could actually work. Now we know the mothership is in space. Now my plan is to take this ship into the mothership, deactivate the shield there, and it should have a ripple effect on the other ships down here. It's like, okay, how would you know that it has a ripple effect? It's like I never I'm sure they explained it in the movie, but I had a hard time following it because it was just a lot of techno babble, I guess, of him trying to explain it through their use as satellites. I was having a hard time deciphering how he came to that admittedly very accurate conclusion.
yeah yeah. And I've said this before. I feel like as soon I do like the plan, which was they use our satellites against us, we'll use it against them, and he planted a virus. But I also felt that like once they figured this out, it seemed like everything just kind of seemed very easy.
Oh,
And
extremely.
even though
It's like they
and even though like it wasn't technically, but it was. Like I wasn't really
yeah.
feeling any suspense or oh no, like it was just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this entire movie, they basically like in the sequel, Independence Day Resurgence, which,
He's really
whew, that's
bad.
a rough movie. It's not good. I was expecting better from it, but they basically refer to this event as the War of '96, and it's also really funny. It's like this. I'm sure there's a shorter war, but it's like they called this a war. It lasted all 3 days.
I mean, it was
Like,
a
and most of the
war, yeah.
casualties were all civilian. Like that, like the amount of military deaths probably it is dwarfed by the amount of civilian deaths. Like, is this really a war? It seemed more like an extermination that you guys prevented. That doesn't sound like a war.
More like, I mean, I don't know, battle. I don't know. I don't know. What's the plot of Resurgence? Like, is it just happening again? Like,
Uh, Basically, it takes place in like modern
yeah.
day after the War of '96. Pretty much all nations pretty much unified under. I mean, they more or less unified, and all global conflicts have pretty much ceased. We have a colony on the moon. We were able to integrate the alien technology with our own, so we have uh, extremely fast like travel. We have spaceships, all this like cool and crazy technology. Um, and there's a signal from deep in space, and it's a giant mothership that is about the size of a third of the entire planet. Um,
Mm.
and it lands, and since it lands on the planet, and it's so large, it has its own gravitational pull. So as its like treads start landing on the planet, it messes with the Earth's gravity, so people just start floating kind of like in zero G because they're being pulled by two different gravitational pulls.
That's
And it's kind of cool and creative, but the
it's
execution was
stupid.
just it's so stupid. There's so many characters in this movie that are just, why are you here? He's
Even
just
worse,
it's
way
so
worse than this, than the first one.
oh, way worse.
'Cause-
At least like the characters in this served a purpose. And this one's like, you are a comic relief and you are a meat shield, and I hope you be used or eventually used as a meat shield. You are a comic relief that is not funny.
Oh god.
Like, I was actually rooting for the aliens a couple times in that movie. And
Yeah.
also, they like Will Smith's character in this, they kill him off screen because he didn't want to be in this movie.
But Jeff, that's the thing is Jeff
It's like that
Goldblum
is so,
was in this, is in Resurgence, and he was in like Fallen Kingdom, and I think he's going to be in the third Jurassic World. Like he seems to be very happy to reprise roles.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, he was in the second Jurassic World movie for all of
Like 5
five
minutes, yeah. I
minutes.
mean, I didn't,
Like,
yeah.
not even that. He was in there. He was in there for like 2 scenes, and I think it was filmed in like one day because it was in the exact same location.
I mean,
It's like it was a very lackluster cameo, if you can even call it
because
that.
they made such a big deal about it, like in the
Oh yeah,
previews.
he's in all the trailers, and what you see in the trailers is about 50% of what you see in the movie.
Mm,
That's it. It's
that's dumb.
not worth it. If that's what your the big pull is for you to go see that movie,
That's not the
look
poll.
elsewhere.
I want to. I haven't seen the first Jurassic World, so I just want to see it because I want to watch the other Jurassic Parks. But like, it's not
Yeah,
specifically. Even if he wasn't in it, I would probably still be willing to watch it. I just that's annoying that he's barely in that movie.
yeah. I'm not that a big of a fan of the Jurassic World movies.
Hopefully, the third one will. I don't know, turn it around. I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah,
I just
hopefully.
know that the first one. All I've heard is like I've heard really bad things about Fallen Kingdom. I just don't want to. Like I know there's been reviews and like whatever. I just don't want to watch any of it because I want to watch it for the first time on my own, and then I don't want any spoilers. I know it's stupid, but like,
Fair enough.
and
Yeah,
yeah, but
fair
I just know
enough.
that the first one is like it's just a higher stakes Jurassic Park. It's like the same thing, but higher
Yeah,
stakes.
the first one is. The second one is
Trying.
just
You said it was. You
they.
said it was trying really hard to be original.
It was trying really hard to be original, but taking way too much stuff from the first Jurassic World movie and the second Jurassic Park movie, which, in my opinion, are very weak sources to pull from.
Yeah.
And then this original stuff that they did pull from just messed with the entire chronology of the entire original movie.
Hmm.
It's just like, wait, that was a thing that happened that you could do this entire time? Okay, why was that not ever introduced? I feel like this would have been very
Oh.
important information. They basically tried to introduce, it's like, oh yeah, there was Hammond, and then there was this other like super old rich guy who helped back him, and this is the first time we're ever hearing of him. It's like, wait, what? There was another like crazy eccentric rich white guy who was super into dinosaurs and helped clone them. Why are we not hearing about him until
That
now?
is
It's like, well, you're
that is the same, almost the same argument that in the Stephen King Family Guy episodes where they're making fun. One of them's like in Contact when or was it Contact? I don't know. They blow up this, and
yeah,
then they're like, and then this other guy's like, oh, I have an identical one on the other side of the world, and we're supposed to believe no
yeah,
one noticed that.
yeah. He's basically like arguing in the movie Contact. They have like this like $1 trillion spaceship, and Jake Busey blows it up, and then we later find out that this eccentric like multi-trillionaire white guy built the exact same rocket on the other side of the moon that or on the other side of the planet that no one knew about until the very end of the movie after this one got blown up.
So dumb.
It's like it's like why?
Oh, I needed a hobby when I retired. Just to
Yeah,
buy remote islands and put dangerous stuff on them.
yeah, that's basically what this thing is. But they also introduce a lot of like weird stuff. Is like, okay, that kind of has like some like cool implications, but why are we being introduced to this the fifth movie into this
To
series
me, that's
when this has clearly been something that you guys have done for a
to me
while?
that's the worst. And like that's the thing is like Independence Day. It, it's the same of like Independence Day is not a like I've seen it to me. It was kind of meh. It was okay. I've seen not just specifically alien movies, but like I've seen better, I've seen worse. But like there were just so many things that I feel like could have been better. And it always irritates me so much when it's like, why didn't you go this way? Or why didn't you do it this way? It wasn't like again, like I've said, I've seen way worse. So it wasn't like there were scenes where I'm like, why isn't this more developed other than maybe the
Yeah,
relationship with Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum. But like I yeah, like I feel like I like the plan a lot, but yeah, like we said, it was just the second they started to like execute it, it was everything just seemed like fell into place and way too easy.
oh yeah, it basically this plan went off pretty much without a hit. The only hitch was that, oh man, we don't have enough rockets to shoot the UFO down before it destroys the bay at Area
Yeah.
51, and Randy Quaid is just like, hold on, Mr. President, I got you covered. I got one rocket left, and it's going right up their asses. And
Randy, he was a really I
his
really liked his character. And I think
it had a very fun
it should
turnaround
have
for
been
him.
yeah, Bill Pullman and Will Smith and Jeff Gold or no, Bill Pullman, Jeff Goldblum, and I feel like Randy Quaid were probably the most important characters. Will Smith, I mean, he helps execute it. Not he's important, but I feel like if they developed, like yeah, I guess developed Randy Quaid a lot better, it could have been. Like we said, we don't. He's constantly saying that he was, but probed by aliens or he was taken by aliens, and of course it
Yeah,
comes off. And I think, oh, are these the same aliens? Are we going to find out what happened? No, it
no,
never it's not it's like it's just a fact about the character and we never really get any confirmation with it. But yeah, they don't have enough
rockets
they don't have
to
enough
shoot
rockets,
down
but they
like
also don't
their
have
main
they
gun.
don't have enough like pilots. And so Bill Pullman, who was a pilot, decides, no, I belong up there. And so he joins, and then and much to Robert Loggia's dismay, and then yeah, Randy Quaid joins. Basically, they say anyone who has flight experience they asked to step forward. And then he, during
Yeah, it's
his
like,
like, yeah, man, also I was probed by aliens, and it's like, is this like helping
uh,
with your background? Like,
no, I think he was just like, they're all like, okay, cool.
because he's,
It's like,
yeah.
you know how to fly a plane, right? You know how to fly a plane, right? It's like, yeah. And then as he's like in his like first getting in his cockpit, he like accidentally arms one of his missiles. It's like, oh shit, and he fixes it. And it's like, oh, I picked a hell of a day to quit drinking.
Yeah.
It's like that's a really funny line. And this is like around the time we hear like the today we celebrate our Independence Day speech, and Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith go up to space and execute the plan without a hitch, and they smuggle in um a nuke with them in their ship that they're gonna launch as soon as they are able to get to a safe distance after launching the virus, but they're locked in the hangar bay and are unable to get out. So it's like, well, I guess it's time to do our part. They launch it, and it manages to destroy the command center that
But this,
is
so
controlling where they're locked in. So they're able to get out, but it's like, oh man, we got 60 seconds to get out of here.
so they're, yeah, they go, they fly up, and then they're being pulled in, and Jeff Goldblum's like, nope, this is good. I counted on this. I was hoping that this was going to happen. They get pulled in, they get locked into place, and they have to close the windows, like put the shield around the windows so that the aliens don't see them. And then the windows get open because they're seeing that there's something up, and
Weird with this
they
ship.
hide. And then at the end, they're like, you know what? Why not? What the hell? Like, let's just go for it, because they're think they're about to die anyway, and so they like, hi, hey, to the alien just before the alien dies, and then they're free and they make it out. And you know how there's like that, like you know how when you're watching a movie and there is that tiny part of you that when tensions are really high, you're just like, can't like this just be the end? Like at the and the part when they first launch the uh they do the nuclear attack, and they they do hit it, but it doesn't like do anything. But they don't know that yet. They're like, "We hit it, yeah, we did it," and I'm like, "The end." Movie ends right there. But like, you know, when they're like,
that's all we had to do.
you know, when you're watching a movie and tensions are really, really high, that you're kind of like, you know, like, can't this just go well? Like, can't they sneak out without getting caught? They are able to get out of somewhere in time, things like that. There's a part of you that just wants that to go well, but obviously it's not going to, because you need conflict. This was just, things just kept going really well. and,
Yeah.
part of me's like, you know, there's been a hell of a couple of days. I guess it's a good thing that things are going well, but like, it all just seemed very easy. And I will say the last couple of, so you know, Randy Quaid has his last rocket, and he realizes that he has to go,
Yeah.
and he's being pulled in, realizes he's going to the ship. And this part I actually was like, oh man, like I felt a little emotional, because he's like, tell my kids I love them, and they're and the son's like listening and is in the
It's
control
like,
room.
Dad, what are you doing?
And then the whole,
and then he flies like right into
what
the,
does he say, his zinger?
hello boys,
Yeah.
I'm back. And then he flies right into it, and since he's flying right into the beam, like right as it's about to fire, it causes the whole thing to basically like basically explode onto itself and destroy the entire ship from the inside, because it basically has like all the energy and it's just being shot backwards into the ship.
And
It's like,
everything
oh, that's all we had to do.
everything is great. And then they go back down into like the basement of Area 51, and all of these people that came in like their RVs and stuff are just camping out down there. And I'm like, what a weird, like, what did you do last 4th? Oh, I was hanging out, and we were hanging out in the depths of Area 51. And
Hell yeah.
and Bill Pullman, everyone's like cheering, like, yay. And I think Robert Loggia probably says something. I don't know, the whole movie I was just like, just thinking, like, every time I saw him, I'm like, it's Robert Loggia, because that's like his voice. I don't know. I the whole movie was just whatever. And
Yeah, the end was just pretty much like, let's see how good it can be for everyone who's a main character because pretty much everyone goes home with zero problem or zero consequences. It just ends on such a happy and high note that it's like, all right, this seems like something should have gone wrong with that plan, but all right,
Like,
we'll stick with
so yeah,
this.
Jeff Goldblum's storyline and his character I liked. Bill Pullman I liked. Will Smith I liked. We just didn't get enough of him. And Randy Quaid I liked. They should have, like, nothing against Vivica Fox, but like for this movie, I feel like if anything, it could have been, we should have gotten more scenes of Will Smith freaking out because he has no idea where she is. And then when we find her, we see, oh yeah, she even helped all these people. Like, that's so nice. That's so great. We didn't necessarily need to see all these scenes with her. You know,
Yeah, it was just kind of, although it was kind of nice, kind
it
of
was nice
seeing
and to see the
from all
survivors.
these point of
Yeah, no,
views.
I
Yeah,
agree. And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, it is nice to see like the survival side of it, um, as opposed to just like the war zone side of it. But like it wasn't 100% necessary. But ironically, I didn't know she was in the movie, and the day I this was a couple days ago. I don't know why I just suddenly I don't know I started. Remember when I showed you Cool Cat Saves the Kids? And she's in
yes,
that. And so I was like,
yeah.
"Hey, you."
That's what you associate her with.
I know she's on Kill Bill and I know she's on like Sharknado or something. I know she's like
Yeah, she's in the second Sharknado, and she's also in the second Independence Day
I just
movie.
thought it was
I don't know why, but sure.
I just like I it wasn't even just like the association. It was because that morning I was watching it and then suddenly I was watching Independence Day and she was in it. I'm like, "Oh, hey, you're going to help Cool Cat stop bullying." Which Cool Cat Saves the Kids, it's if you want something really stupid to watch, it's ridiculous. It's literally this guy wrote these kids books about this cat, and it's a live action movie, and it's just like a guy in a cat costume, like a mascot costume, but acting like a
Yeah.
kid. And Vivica Fox plays herself along with Eric Estrada. It's like for 5 minutes in the movie. I haven't
It's basically just like a PSA of like,
bullying.
hey kids, don't do
Don't
drugs, and like,
yeah.
it's an anti-bullying campaign.
But it's the particular review that I watched that I really like. He even says like, I thought everybody wanted to get a nice dose of stupid because like it's just yeah it's really stupid, but it's like you cry laughing because it's so like why is this a movie kind of thing. So no, it's not. It's just that I associate. It's I don't think I really knew about Vivica Fox until I became aware of Cool Cat, and then I'm like I became aware of her. But I more just thought it was funny that I started was watching that, and then I was watching Independence Day, and I'm like, oh, she's also in Independence Day. Um, so
So
I was Kevin. Do you think? Do you have anything more to say?
no, we pretty much covered it. They basically they blow up the mothership without a hitch, which causes like all the other, and they send in the virus, which causes all the other ships to lose their shields. So everywhere around the world, they're able to destroy and disable all these ships with whatever means that they have. And
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh,
yeah,
wait,
they
I
yeah they win.
I almost forgot when they come up with their plan. They're we're seeing it like go to all these different countries, and I thought it was so funny because when it gets to France, one of the guys is in a striped shirt and smoking, and I'm like, let's just hammer it in that they're French. I feel like the fact that it
Yeah,
says France and that they're speaking French should be enough. But no, make one of them as cliche as possible. I thought that was just so funny.
everyone was
No,
pretty cliche. Like
they were, but
when it gets to the British, it was like, oh, finally, what do the Americans cook up? It's like, all right,
um, but and yeah, and I guess it ends with or they all Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum, which I feel like is a fun. That's a fun cast. Like I would love to see Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith do something again because they're both hilarious, and they barely. It was just like you said. It's just all these storylines just coming together, and I mean whatever. But like it ends with yeah, they all meet up in the desert, and Bill Pullman's daughter says like, Happy 4th of July, Daddy. And he's like, you too. And then
Yeah,
it's like, oh, yeah, it's
yeah,
because it's the 4th. And uh, movie ends. And Jeff Goldblum and his wife get back together. And it, yeah.
yeah. All these good happy times, and yeah, that's how Independence Day ends. And then they made a sequel like 20 years later because why not?
Yeah, because, it was so popular 20 years ago. Let's just make. I don't know. Was there a reason? Like, it didn't need a sequel. So,
It didn't. I mean it didn't hurt to have one, but at the same time, when you make it 20 years later, you need to have a very good reason why you want to reintroduce the series. And they also end the sequel on a cliffhanger of there potentially being more.
oh, God.
And it which really sucks because the way they frame it, like I've been playing this video game series called XCOM, which is very much this like humans versus aliens type thing of us harnessing like their technology and incorporating it in our own, so we're better at fighting them, and this whole kind of government protecting like civilians kind of way. And they kind of frame it a little bit like that, of us having worked with alien technology for 20 years, that we have like all these like crazy like ray guns and spaceships and like way better ways to combat
Hmm.
them in a way that we would in like the 90s. Like, oh, like that's a really cool spin on it. And then they kind of introduce that there's more out there, and it does not pull, it doesn't work out for this movie at all. They introduce like a bunch of stuff that apparently happened in the first movie that we're just finding out about now. It's
Uh,
like, oh yeah, like this was part of their land invasion. It's like, wait, what land invasion? They had foot troops? When did that happen?
I mean, whatever. It was just very meh. Like, I wasn't as engaged as I could have been, but I also, you know, it could have been a lot worse, but it could have been a lot better. Um,
Yeah. And the second one didn't need to happen.
so, Kevin, do you think this movie real?
Uh Probably not in the way that it's framed. I feel like the whole angle of David being the only one to figure out this weird piggyback signal that the aliens are pulling, I feel like someone in like the State Department or like the Secretary of Defense, like someone like high up in like Pentagon, just monitoring all of this, would have picked that up way faster than Jeff Goldblum, and they would have been able to come up with some kind of counter plan to like, oh, let's disrupt their signals with some kind of weird uh piggyback signal to kind of like mess with like their communications because they're messing with us. And I felt like they could have like pulled an angle like that, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to make Jeff Goldblum this like run of the mill cable guy to figure it
Or
out.
he could have even been like a cable guy, or he does some kind of something within like the Pentagon, or like like
Yeah,
he could have still had very little ambition, but he's like very low level within, like that would have made a little more sense. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I have like my office in like the storeroom of the Pentagon because I'm like a not needed asset here. Like that would have made sense. He's just like a very like overqualified person in a very underfunded like part of the the defense branch or
Hmm.
whatever. Like that would have made sense rather than just, I'm a cable guy who has like a PhD and like a 300 level IQ. It's like, okay, you
It's not
why are
even,
you
yeah, it's
here?
like it's not even like, okay, he's really smart. Even if he was doing something, yeah, he's just like a even if he was doing something that he's not getting very paid, or because he's like, I like where I am. It's like, I understand the ambition thing, but it's like, it's one thing if his job was something, it's very important to him, and it doesn't seem like his job is not important to him. He just, I don't know, like,
He just does it because it's something that comes easy to him.
and that's just that. I mean, and that would have even been an interesting storyline of like you don't like when things are messy or difficult, and like that could have even tied in with his relationship with his wife. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
there was definitely a lack of. Jeff Goldblum's always a joy. So, but I agree.
Oh yeah, I love Jeff Goldblum and pretty much everything that he
Yeah.
does.
And this is like also a couple years after Jurassic Park. And he's like pretty by the again, it's not like he's a newbie by this point. He is Jeff Goldblum.
Basically, yeah. He pretty much like kind of plays the same as everything.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam, do you think that this is real?
I will say I think the plan that the aliens come up with is definitely we said it's fairly elaborate, but I actually thought it was kind of clever. I think the behave I say this, I keep saying this, but it's true. I feel like a lot of the behaviors I'm seeing I can definitely find plausible. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Jeff Goldblum figuring out this signal really makes sense. But I also feel like just Jeff Goldblum's character is not there's so many flaws. Like I said, I didn't really know what his job was. And I agree. I just don't think it makes any sense on why he was able to figure this out when no one else was.
Yeah, it was just.
So yeah, I think overall,
I felt like they needed to have
it's
like.
not very real.
Yeah, I felt like they needed to have like a better explanation on why Jeff Goldblum figured it out and no one else
So
did.
I guess I think the plan I think is kind of interesting, and that maybe again I don't know about an alien asking about an alien invasion and if the nature of an alien invasion is realistic is what a question. But I think overall,
Yeah.
no, it's not very real, and it's not for the obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, watch it, don't watch it. I don't care. like
I mean, it's definitely like an enjoyable movie, and it's
yeah,
kind of just like the movie that they play every day on like TNT for 4th of July. So it's a very enjoyable movie for what it is. It's campy, it's schlocky at times. It's got great action, it's got cool one-liners, and it's pretty much what you would expect from a 90s action movie.
yeah. Um, I kept forget the whole movie though. I kept thinking like I realized I had only seen two. At least I think I've only seen two Bill Pullman movies, and one is Sleepless in Seattle. He's the Meg Ryan's boyfriend or fiance in that movie, and Spaceballs.
Yeah, I was about to say is like Spaceballs is like really the only other movie that
And
I know him
Spaceballs is a
from.
weird movie because it is funny, but it's like it starts off really well and then it just kind of goes downhill at some point during the movie.
It kind of it kind of just
Yeah.
goes.
Actually, speaking of, well, it's an adjacent jump, but this week, so did you I mean, I don't know, did you hear Carl Reiner died? And he was 98,
Yeah,
long life.
yeah, I did hear about
Carl
that.
Reiner, if anyone doesn't know, he is a renowned television writer. He created the Dick Van Dyke Show, which I haven't seen all of it. I've seen part of it. I was actually kind of impressed. It was very funny. It wasn't just like I think I was expecting because it's the '60s. It's just gonna be like slapstick and stuff. But no, it was actually like very funny. And his uh, Rob Reiner is a son who's another really great director. But Spaceballs made me think of this because he and Mel Brooks had a very famous friendship, and they apparently every night would have dinner and watch a movie. And the only movie, but they pick movies if they have the line, "Get some rest" or "Search the perimeter." Which I'm like, first of all, I'm like, I can totally see us being like this when we're like 90.
Oh, 100%.
There's a very reasonable chance. But also, I was like, what a like, that's hilarious. Like, not, what a life. Also, like, what an insane way to pick a movie. Not like, it has to have an actor.
Get some rest or search the perimeter.
Because I remember, like, Carl Reiner was on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld. It's on Netflix, and the first part was him and Carl Reiner, and then later they went to go hang out with Mel Brooks, and you see the movies that were like on the counter or the table, whatever that they would watch, and one of them I think was like Night and Day. It with like Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz. Like, so they're just watching.
Oh my God.
Any movie that has these two lines.
That is hilarious.
What a great way. I'm like, that'd be a good idea for a podcast. Watching movies that only have like a certain type of line.
Oh my God. Well, maybe we'll have a theme month around Search the Perimeter.
I always thought that was hilarious. But yeah, when I saw that, was like, oh man, but he was 98, long life, so it wasn't. Yeah,
yeah. He will be missed, but yeah, he lived a full life, and it seemed like he went relatively peaceful from what I've heard.
Sir.
So, our hearts go out to friends and family that are affected, but hopefully he's in a better place now.
And mean that literally.
Yeah. Yes. Why wouldn't I?
Do you have any recommendations? Anything you've been watching lately?
The only thing that I've been watching, I finally started watching Supernatural, the TV show. I'd never seen it. I've only seen like a handful of scenes here and there. I know about like the Scooby Doo like crossover movie that they did like a couple years ago, but aside from that, I had never really seen an episode, and I'm about, I don't know, like 10 episodes into the first season, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I've been getting recommended by like a lot of people to watch that actually. So I'm very glad that I actually started watching it. It's a very fun and enjoyable show. They have all 15 seasons on Netflix, and I think that's the last season, or I don't know if it's still going or not. I really don't know. I'm still new to this fandom.
It either is its last season or it's having one. I think 15. Yeah, I think it's done. But 15, that's insane.
Okay. Yeah, this show started in like 2004 or 5, and it went all the way until like last year or last summer.
Supernatural, it's one of the shows that like everybody was really into. My sister was the one that was tried really hard to get me into it, and we watched a couple episodes, and then I finally decided, I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. I've seen the first 2 seasons, and I do like it. I like the characters a lot, and things like demons and like selling your soul, that type of stuff, for some reason just creeps me out. So I tend to, and that is a lot of the show. So
that's like 90% of the show.
I kind of tend to, but it is definitely a fun show. Actually, one of my friends, it's a picture in her house. Her husband proposed to her when they went to some like convention, and I can't think of his name, but the guy that's Castiel, who comes later in Supernatural.
Yeah, I'm not that far yet. I don't know who that is. I know of him because my sister and both my girlfriend watch that show and are like, I don't know, like 12 seasons in, so they pretty much know all of it. So it's like, I know of it just from like residual conversations.
It was some convention or whatever, and that was how her husband proposed to her. And so the picture is her like freaking out, and Misha Collins, she's covering her mouth, like her face, and he's doing the same thing as her like husband's on one knee, and that's like, what a way to get proposed to.
Seriously. Do you have any recommendations?
Well, actually, now that we mention it, I know I'm the one that brought it up. So that'll just be a good time. I actually, a couple episodes back, our friend Jocelyn Ponciano came on, and we talked about Wreck-It Ralph. We all talked about Wreck-It Ralph, and we had a bunch of fun and got to talking. And as of this week, we launched our own podcast. So it's on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. It's called That Good Old Disney Podcast, where we talk about not just Disney movies, we just talk about Disney in general. And we're kind of predominantly going in order. And so the first 2 episodes are out on Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. And we're, predominantly going in order. So the first episode is about Walt Disney. The second is about Mickey. And our third, and I believe our fourth. At least we're going to try to have them both come out next week. So I just watched Snow White and I just watched Pinocchio. And Snow White, I hadn't seen in maybe 20 years. And, well, I mean, I watched it a couple times when I was a kid, and I don't know, I hadn't watched it since. And it's kind of, I definitely say if you're either into Disney or even into just film in general, I recommend watching it because it's pretty wild just to see, like, for the time period that it's really beautiful. The animation is just so different than it is today. And I mean, it's hand drawn, which we know, but like the the amount of detail and the design is just really gorgeous. And Pinocchio, we both have watched it. We haven't recorded that episode yet, but it's kind of terrifying. So I can't wait to talk about it.
There's a lot of terrifying
Yeah,
moments in like old
that is what we're
Disney
noticing.
cartoons.
So I've been accidentally,
Yeah.
not accidentally, I don't know why I say accidentally, but I've been intentionally watching older Disney, which I haven't done in such a long time. So it's I don't know, it's fun. It's so different than what Disney is today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. This
Well, yeah. I guess on that note, I'm Kevin Tracy.
And I'm Samantha Tomlinson. And I hope your 4th of July is not filled with an alien invasion. Or not an invasion. They just come and then try to destroy stuff. That too.
Well, keep an eye to the sky. Firework in the air is a warning shot. That should teach them a lesson. Well, this has been Movie Reel, folks. See you next time. Bye bye.